Wow. Thank you all for staying until 6 o'clock. I know how the English like to go to the pub at the 6 o'clock. Let's find out who's in the room. Who's a developer here? That's everybody, right? Who's an architect? Who wants to be an architect? Who draws pictures? Who's a manager? What are you doing here? Just having fun with you. Today we're going to talk about something rather interesting and really quick. If you looked out front or read the abstract that I submitted, this was originally submitted to be a lab. So this is a hands-on thing. Everything you see today here that I'm going to show you is available online and you can do it at home at your own pace. It's not a big dramatic thing to get through this, but I'm going to give you kind of a feel of it, right? We're going to have like a sniff at this thing for the first 30 minutes today. I'll give you a little backstory on where this came from, how we got to it, and what we're building, and why it looks the way it is. So if we look at how houses are built, and you see these architectural diagrams, when you've seen architectural diagrams from your architects or whatever in your companies for software, it really doesn't matter. It's all the same thing, whether you're building a bridge, a piece of software, whatever. Somebody came up with a great idea, used whatever language notation they had to make this beautiful diagram, and then we go out there and build it, right? And so that concept of what the guy had in his head that drew the picture, that always comes out, right? The building's beautiful, the software's perfect, nothing breaks. But to give you an example of where something gets translated into this really weird thing, I mean, I know this is way out in left field. Nobody's going to do this in their mind, but somebody did. Somebody did this, right? So wouldn't it be nice if we could take not just a standard notation of how something's being built, but we took really beautiful things and looked at them, successful things, and we give you the choice to pick from this kind of stuff, so you have a little bit better idea of what it's supposed to be, the translation from the diagram to the reality. What we did at Red Hat is we stepped back and said, okay, instead of taking marketing teams and presenting marketing stuff out to you of how you should build stuff with our diagrams and how we have an opinionated way of you're going to design your scalable systems, we looked at use cases and we decided to get 2 to 3 customers that have done it successfully at scale. And that's another problem. Every customer that's interested in what we're doing with open source technology wants to see how somebody else did it first. But not everybody will be a public reference. Anybody here work at a bank? Financial institution? Doesn't really matter. Are you guys big on sharing? Not so much, right? And fair enough. I mean, it's hard work. You've invested a lot of stuff in what you're doing. It's your own choice whether you want to do that or not. But we've struggled for years trying to figure out a good way to do this. So the last 4 years, we stepped back and we said, hey, let's take a use case, something like omni-channel integration, front to back. How do you integrate and reach your customer and be really agile using clouds or whatever? And we said, let's research 3 people that have done this and then abstract what they did, not just give you a diagram of what that one person did, but what do we find that's continually the same way of putting things together to make this happen, right? So that's the idea behind this. Then we developed diagrams around it. So the first one I'm not going to really show you too much of today, but that's the high-level architecture thing that's like just really high level for talking to C-level people and what the bits and pieces are. And then we had 3 different levels that we're going to dive into in this workshop today. We have a logical diagram, we have a schematic diagram, and a detailed diagram. None of this, anybody here TOGAF certified? I don't want to insult you, but we're not going there. You know what I mean? We wanted to get something that could be conversational. So when you get these diagrams, you're talking about this big, large overview picture that everybody can look at and understand. So you could test this by, can I describe this to my mother? You know, that would be the golden scenario, but you can go into any organization and talk about these big high-level things, right? You're not going to be able to do at a software level a sequence diagram in our tooling. That's not what we're trying to achieve. There's different tools for that. So that's not what we're looking for. And we put some enablement stuff around it. We put it into a presentation that you can walk through. You can find some of that stuff online. We have a public website that lists some of this stuff. Most of it's stored in GitHub. The diagram tooling is based on Draw.io. Anybody knows that? It turned into diagram.net. So that's open source hosted SaaS tooling online, any browser. And then we put our own configuration over the top of it with the pre-set up templates and stuff to design what we have designed. You'll see that in a second. We put some videos together. There's demos linked in if they apply to the thing. And that's kind of the product that we're trying to design and share out there. So really quickly, for cloud native, this is what we came up with, a really high level story where I can say, hey, somebody's out here developing stuff. It creates an image. It gets transmitted under these different things and deployed. That's the really high level story, right? Not very exciting for people that are in technology, but for, C-level people or your 5-minute thing in an elevator, it's very easy to do, right? That's not what we do with the diagrams. This is a slideshow example, right? Anybody that's done this kind of stuff in slides, how much fun is it to do these? Yeah? Oh my God. Nothing is locking. Nothing is, using bits and pieces to pull this together. It's really horrible. But what if we did this? And I already touched on it a little bit. What if we take that same story and we turned it into a logical, grouping of the components? It's not that hard. And I don't like to say components. I like to say elements. I don't even want to get into the languages of real architecture stuff. It's just elements we're designing. It's elements that we have in here. It's things that people understand. And when we get to one, you'll get a look at some of these things. Nothing is mentioning a product, right? It's a sort of a grouping of functionality. And how you choose to implement that, we might give you a few examples that are very detailed of how somebody does that, but it may or may not include an actual product. We won't even talk about a product or an open source technology until we get into these parts. And then let's assume you're having this conversation and maybe you want to zoom in deeper on this element. Well, you can pull that up and you have a detailed diagram. That's the idea, right? So here's a logical one. And you see, sometimes you can't avoid. This is a very specific, at the time that we designed this, used to copy images across registries. Really wasn't integrated into any of our products, so we used the upstream project. We actually named it. There's really no other way to talk about it. You see like CI/CD platform, you can fill that in with anything you want in your organization. And the idea being that people that are successful at this is roughly how they group the stuff. This is where you will find it in the organization. I'm not telling you like a reference architecture, use this piece of software, this version, talk to this port, use these network connections. That's up to you. You're smart enough. If somebody gives you a blueprint and you can go home and look at it and match it to your own architecture, you can figure it out, right? And here's a little bit with, usually there's text involved where it talks about how you flow through all this stuff. So you see somebody's building something, going into CI/CD, source to image, creates an image, gets put out into our image registry where then he starts propagating it out into the various development environments. Not super surprising, right? This is a cloud native development story. A little bit of an expansion with something else. But what you see here is you're going to have the ability to drag and drop these things into a template format, and they all look the same. And they have colors that's a little bit hard to tell, but like applications is in green. The brown stuff is a little bit more of infrastructure. Just very simple groupings and very simple ideas to get your head around. And let's say, because we're in Draw.io/diagram.net as a foundation, it also includes all these other companies that have put stuff in there. Anybody here played with IBM Garage? Looked at their stuff? Have you gone to AWS and looked at their hosted solutions and architecture diagrams? They have all their own icons for stuff like this. They did it in this tooling too. So you can go in there and you can add and drag and drop that in, and instead of using what we're using, you can drop some other icon inside of here. It's all replaceable. I'll show you that in a second. And here's an example of zooming in. And these are really simplistic in this case, but what's nice is every time you find these in our slideshows, we have a link at the bottom that brings you right into the tooling with this automatically opened, fully editable. So it's getting it out of the GitHub repository where we keep all the examples, where anybody can put an example if they want to. It's open source. And you can edit all this stuff if you like. It's really easy. This is our collection at the Architecture Center where you can see, for example, the stuff we just looked at is behind this. So you click on this and then it dives down into it and it shows you the stuff. You can open it up in the editor. I'll show you that in a second. And I'm going to drop out because all the links are right here, and here we'll get a little bit hands-on for a bit, play with it. So really quickly I'll do that. So cloud native, a little too tall for your table. So this drops down into what you'll basically find in the GitLab repository. We like to use GitLab. This is just a representation of the README file. You're seeing the same things we just looked at listed out. Make it a little bigger here. When you get down to the bottom here, and that's the part where it starts getting fun, you can open the diagrams. And it's nice to do that in some kind of private window so you have no caching going. And what it's doing is it's opening the tooling that we host, which I'll come back to in the lab, give you an idea. The network's going to crap on me, watch. There it comes. There you go. So it's a bit zoomed in. You see here over on the side, we're going to see all this stuff. And the lab will walk you through what all this stuff is. Those are the various icons and stuff that we can drag and drop onto here. And you see the tabs are at the bottom. That includes the various diagrams and different things you can do. And just to give you a few ideas, we have two ways. We don't get too complicated with this stuff right now. So you have the ability to drag and drop these things and they self-connect. So that's all taken care of. When you drop things in here, you're going to see that you're able to lock stuff onto it. It just drops in and fills up. You don't have to jiggle stuff around anymore. You can select, for example, this one, this one, this one, and use the arrange stuff there at the top, and it'll align it all for you. It's really easy. These are data connections. If you use something like the schematic thing here, that's services. Go down to the schematics. You see here you have various connectors like this, and you can play with these things. You can also just delete it, and you can also go onto here and drag them, right? Connect them anywhere you want. They'll lock in. You start playing around with them. So before I get too far down that road, we'll go back to what we were going to look at here. You have the examples repository. Here's where you can find all kinds of fun stuff. One of the labs will take you through this. It's just a GitLab thing with a big README at the bottom that's listing. And I just went through a whole series of articles that I published online about each collection. So we got collections around different, like Edge, Finance, all this stuff, and each individual one. You get to the cloud native one, you can click on it, and you can see it's basically pulling it into the website from here. We're just beautifying it a little bit into a web format. So you should recognize this, right? Straight into the tooling. And then we get to the workshop. This is all Reveal.js hosted online. Everybody can do this in any browser. You can open this right now in your telephone. It'll scale it all down into your phone size. So if you want to surprise somebody in the lift and bore them all the way from the 36th floor down to the bottom, you can show them this stuff. This includes a navigational tip here. I gave you this. Is if you hit M for menu, you get to see the whole listing of the various chapters that are involved in each lab. And I'll walk through the high level thing here. So what I'm doing right now, that's what this video will do. I presented this before at a remote conference and recorded it and just included this here. It's kind of an introduction to what the lab does, what I just walked through with you guys. And then we have exploring the tooling, which is basically opening it up and walking through a few of the pieces like I just did with you. And then you have a complete walkthrough of the asset library. That's everything on the left side. So all the different things you can drag and drop into it and what that looks like. How to play with the colors, and then you're going to create your first own high-level logical diagram. And don't worry, if you're a true architect, you're really just sniffling around trying to figure out if this is worth wasting my time on. You can go to the end and you can import the diagram completed that's done in the lab. That's why I showed you the examples repository. Each one of those things can be imported. That's how we did that, by opening it automatically with everything in it. There's very few reasons to start with a completely templated blank thing. You can just use something that's existing, make a copy, and continue on with that. We have exporting and importing diagrams. So everything you saw can be selected and exported. So don't screenshot and drop it somewhere that looks like crap. If you use this stuff and select like one element or a couple of the elements, you can export them as PNGs and all that kind of stuff, and they look really sharp. There's explicit instructions in that lab how to do that. You have to zoom into each element like 300%, and it looks really sharp. Then we create a schematic diagram. So that's drawing a network connection, drawing a data connection, making multiple things and putting colors in them and all that kind of fun stuff. Again, at the end, you can import the complete thing and just use it or explore it as it's completed. We create a detailed diagram, and then you get examples of tips and tricks, right? So things you can do that you've never done before. All the things that make it a little bit easier. So I'll just start with the first one. And these are not super long. You can see when I hit the menu thing, this is like, 6, 7 steps. And each one is designed exactly the same. It includes the tooling that we host. So if you right-click this thing and open it in incognito or whatever, guess what? We're back to the same thing I just showed you. But now we're opening this tool, and it's going to give us, hopefully, maybe not. The network doesn't like me. Ah, come on. Maybe we're too far away from the hosting. There we go. You see that normally when you open up this tool, if you just go to Draw.io, you're going to get something like this. Just blank. There's nothing. That's no fun. We got some templates for you. You can do a detailed, a logical, or a schematic, or you can just do everything. So if we start with a logical one, which is the first lab, you're going to see 2 tabs here at the bottom. Does it all fit on screen? Yeah. 2 tabs, a kit of parts. So basically everything involved that you can play with in this lab has been put on here. So you're going to see all the icons here can be found in the palettes over there. And one of the things to note that I mentioned is more shapes here at the bottom. So watch what happens when I go in there. Say you're a big fan of, I don't know, UML. So you can add this just by selecting that, and it'll put it in the tabs on the side. I'm not going to do it because I want to keep you focused on what we're doing. So if you do that, you'll get it. So what we did is we preloaded ours instead of putting them in this thing. But you can contribute to the project and get anything you want in here. What you're also going to find is this scratch pad up here. So anything you design, you can make an icon. So we could design something and then you just actually drag it and drop it over here. Some image. If I can select these, I guess I can't. But you could take any one of these things and you drop them up here. And it usually adds them in there. It's not going to do it because it's already here. But if you design something yourself, you just bring an image, you create your own scratch pad there. You can export that thing and make that your own personal thing. All right, so these are part of the things you'll find in the Draw.io stuff. You get over to the starting canvas, and there's where you find the action. That's where we're going to start having fun. So since we're doing logical diagrams, these are the things we're interested in and the various aspects that can be modeled. So let's say we want to do a service icon. These are just placeholders for how big it is to give you the target. This thing here is also just a placeholder, so you can design this. Say we want to make this a green one. And then we can go to the back, and I have to unlock it first. Everything locks. You see you can maybe just barely see it's got a red outline. That means it's locked. So I unlock it, and then I can delete that. And I can label this whatever I'm supposed to label it. Cloud. And this service is cloud service. And it might be multi-cloud. And you notice I could drop it there. I could lock it here. And it automatically fits the size. So this makes your life so much easier, right? And yeah, it's just on and on with this kind of stuff, right? So you'll see in the lab what happens is it walks you through what I just did. Tells you to open the logical diagram step by step. That's what you're going to see. And every single lab does this. Boom, boom, boom. This is what you see at the end. This is where you should be. Here's a few links in case you want to find stuff. Here's how you contact me for questions. Let's do the next one. Here we're walking through what the various palettes and things mean. And then we're going to show you how to import some silly stuff. And this is where you should be. And funny enough, that's, until I started playing around with it, is exactly where we're at, right? So we're on course so far through 2 labs. Selecting a shape, color palette. So I didn't talk too much about that yet. If we look here on the side, let's say I don't like this color. Once I select that and unlock it, over here is a color palette, and it's basically designed for the color schemes that we have in our stuff. So you're going to see, okay, I decided I want to make this an actual application service, right? So did I select it? Should be able to change it. Might have locked it again. Did I? No. Unlock it. Well, what's he doing here? So I can't do that, and you get this, delete it. There. We're going to make this a container. Supposed to turn this green. Well, it's not working with me. There you go. The other one I can't get unlocked for some reason, so we'll just get rid of it. But you see how you can change the colors on this thing over here on the palette is the idea. Green, blue, red. And I locked it back up again. You can change sizes, text, all kinds of stuff over there. You can play around that on your own time. When you get all done, if you want any questions, you can contact me. We can go look at the higher level diagram. And here's one where we're going to do a client to cloud, a backend, and he walks you through designing this one right here. You see this looks awful familiar from what we were just doing, right? And you get all the way to the end here, and the fun part is after you've designed all this stuff, you see it's going each service, each thing, changing the colors, locking the stuff in. And on the way, I'm kind of showing you different tips and tricks that I've learned over the time. So I can sit down and do one of these things in about 5 minutes, but I've been doing this almost 4 years. So it's really time to find something else to do, I think. But the idea was to people get started, get a feel for what this can do, and then you watch what people run off and do with this. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. Don't try to do your sequence diagrams with it. That's not going to be a lot of fun. The saving, that's an interesting thing too. So right now what we've got here is a diagram going, and you think, oh, this is really great. I need to save it up here or something, but you make a mistake and you do this. And you're dumb enough to click that. So you think, oh shit, got to bring it back. Look what he does. Do you want to discard what you were doing? So he's caching this stuff in the background. Now let's keep going. And go back, see what we got. Oh, whew, it's all still there, right? So your whole browser can get torched. This thing works in all kinds of browsers. It's really quite nice. If you want to save it, you can save it. Just give it some diagram name. And it'll put it locally. That's our default. If you're using the tool directly from the hosting of diagram.net, it'll allow you to put it into a GitHub repository. It'll allow you to put it into a Drive folder. There's all kinds of ways you can save this stuff. My stuff. Vox. So now I got a file saved, and you can reopen stuff. And what else we got going on? Now it's designing all the service boxes, and it's really step by step with every single picture. So there's really no way. And what's nice about this too, you can stop any time and come back to this by saving that work, or not even saving the work because it's caching it for you. So as long as you don't delete those files, and you'll notice I keep mentioning you're supposed to save the work. We get here towards the end, we get all done, and let's say you want to report it. So we want to import this. Just copy the link, go over here, and this is an example of just stealing some other work. File, import from, URL, paste the URL, see if it works. There you go. Where'd it go? Oh, no. Let's import it from here. So I was selected on something, so you imported it down below all the diagrams. We don't want that. We wanted to import it here. It did the same thing. Now, let's try it this way then. File, import from, URL. He's not doing it. He's putting the whole file in there right now, so that's not exactly what we want to do. I will fix this before you get back to your house and try to do this. I will go home and fix this. Now the URL is so it's doing the actual file URL, and what it has to do is to be told to bring the file in as a file, and then it'll expand it into what it's supposed to be. But what it's supposed to do is what I'm showing you there, and it'll just pull in this thing just like that. So you'll have an extra tab next to the tabs you're working on with the end results set up for you already. Something's got to fail when we're up front, right? So importing and exporting is another really good one. We got a little bit of time left. Yeah, we got a little bit of time left. I'll do that really quick. Where are we at? So we'll go back to the tab we were working on. And let's say I really like this thing, so I select it, export as PNG. And just from experience to make them really sharp in any kind of presentation or whatever you're using that, we do that. only what I selected, and we export. And if you look really close here, you'll see what is going to be exported. It's a preview, and you see all the places you can dump it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to dump it locally. And then we can open. And there you go. So this sort of thing is just an image you can drop into any diagrams you're doing, any presentations. You can, is my time up? If I don't select anything and I say file export as PNG, do the same thing, and I say do the whole diagram, then you see the whole complete slide image basically. Download that, open. There you go. And this, because you're doing 300%, I mean, it's framing it to fit the screen right now, but this is really sharp stuff. So anything you use, it's not going to be fuzzy or weird looking. If you put it into an article that you're writing or whatever, anything you find online that I've written about this stuff uses it this way. It's really sharp stuff, right? Any of the images that you pull off of those READMEs or any of the examples are also done this way, so it's really sharp. So with that, we got exactly 4 minutes left for any questions anybody has. There's only a couple more labs after this one, and basically it's just a quick start, right? It's nothing really exciting or deep yet. Yes, sir. Oh. You can, yeah. Sure you can. He's asking if I can do SVG, whatever. You know what I mean. So file, export as SVG. So here you got a little bit more stuff you can do with enhancing the image. So it should be all the same, including my diagram. Export. Oops, download. Let's see what that looks like. Ooh, it's even bigger. So there you go, SV. There's lots of different stuff. You're going to be able to import from URLs. You can import. So I didn't show you that part yet. When we get to the examples repository, that should work too. If we actually go to the diagrams files, you'll see all these files in here. You see the Cloud Native Development or IO thing here. I'm not sure if this one will work from here. You should be able to open that in this. And the key here is to get the right, it might require the raw version of that. That's why my link when I'm opening now is like trying to expand a file into the diagram. So let's see what this does. Import from, I actually don't do this too much. That's why I put the link together, because the links are rather funky. Yep. So he's doing the file thing here again. That's not what we wanted to do. It requires a question mark and some information behind it to tell it what it's getting when it comes in. So, but SVG does work. Anything else? Anybody? Another one.
Have you Okay, have you tried can you build a pipeline, a Camel K pipeline, for example, with this tool?
That would be a little bit more in the line of doing something like a schematic diagram where you're diagramming out in the detail of each step in a pipeline like that. One thing that is interesting, I had a tweet one time I put on not too long ago about the collections I was doing, and the guy was like, "Oh, interesting, you guys are doing this? Why?" And the question was kind of loaded because he had a script, I think it was a script, that would use the APIs of this stuff to take a diagram and turn it into code. So he was trying to low code out of this stuff. But what his baseline stuff was, of course, not my diagram. So I don't know what he was using as maybe UML or whatever, one of those diagramming languages that can be a little bit more quantified. Then you can do a parser for that. So there's some interesting extensions that I think people are playing with around this stuff because it's all open source. You can do whatever you want. We host the tooling in the same GitLab organization. You can go look at how we host it and how we lay over these images and import all that stuff and set it up so that the tool is ready to go when you come in. So
I think there is in OpenShift some tool where you can build the camelets or something like that.
Yeah, so that's actually a designer. That's a little different. That's not. These are just images, right? That's not the same thing. This doesn't translate to code. So I thought you were searching for the code translation. There are some stuff out there that are parsing this to code, but that's not what we're doing in our OpenShift designers. No, no.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Is it really beer time now? Oh,
Could you just show the slide with all the links on it again?
oh yeah, sure. There you go. So just lately, we moved it all over to the Red Hat site, so you can actually get hosted on our infrastructure. And everything you'll find in GitLab, it's not GitHub. We use GitLab. Open source portfolio architectures, OSSPA. That's where you'll find them all. And there's 2 workshops listed here. The one we just went through is this one. There's a second one that's more about designing a portfolio architecture in 4 steps. So you want to get an idea of how we're doing it, I've documented that too. Different workshop, different DevOps. No more questions. I'm getting blinky times up and y'all are missing beer time. So I've got some free passes to a DevOps party up front here for anybody that wants to get them. And it's first come, first serve until they're gone. Yeah, that's tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. Thank you.